everyone, welcome back. It's Becca. Today I am bringing you a tutorial slash hack video on the new Felicity pattern from Sonia Estep Designs. And so the pattern is written as a dress, and I am going to be hacking it to turn it into a peplum top. And so this video will be helpful if you are doing the dress as well. For the bodice, I'm doing bodice A, and I haven't decided if I'm going to be doing sleeves or not. I might leave it, hack it and make it into a tank top, but I'm going to play with it and get the body done first and then try it on and see if we want to add sleeves. I'm going to be using this fabric. It is a very lightweight, thin, nice and drapey. I believe it's a rayon blend spandex of some sort, but I think it'll be super cute as this top. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be omitting the waistband. The belt is what the pattern piece is written, and turning the skirt into a gathered skirt and making it one piece. So as I said, this tutorial will still be very helpful if you are trying to do bodice A of the Felicity dress. And I will link the pattern down below so that you can go and grab it, and if you want to try this hack or if you just want to try the dress. There's two different bodice options. The dress is super cute as written, but as soon as I saw this pattern, I knew that after I did the dress, I wanted to try it as a top. And I'm kind of just winging this. I'm not completely sure how this is going to turn out, so I'm just going to bring you guys along for the ride and see how it goes. Let's get started. Okay, so for bodice A, what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave the bodice exactly as written in the sleeves. I'm not going to change anything for this hack. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut out two mirrored images of the front bodice and then the one bodice on the back. Okay, and then since I'm doing bodice A, I'm going to cut out one front bodice belt piece. This is going to be the lining, go on the inside. So I'm just going to cut it out as written. You could extend it a little bit if you wanted it to come down a little bit more, but I'm just going to cut it out as is, and I think that that should be fine as like a lining kind of facing piece on the inside. But I'm only going to cut out one. And if I was doing bodice B, I wouldn't do this just because of how the bodice is built, and you don't need that double facing on that piece. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to trace this belt piece now on a piece of paper. If you have your paper pattern, you don't need to do this, but because I'm doing it on my projector, I'm going to do it this way, and I'm also going to cut and slice it. So you may want to trace it so that you can cut it apart if you would like. So I have two layers here, and I'm just going to cut out two copies of this, so it's like it's on the fold. Alright, so now that I have my centerpieces here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these about halfway. I'm going to cut about 4 places, or maybe 3 on each one will do. So I'm going to stack them again and cut it into 3 sections. And then, so now I have my fronts. Right, so I forgot that the skirt was marked on a fold, so we really only needed one of those paper pieces. But so what I am going to do now is I'm going to lay my fabric out here for my skirt. And so this is only going to be for my front skirt. The back skirt is going to follow more of this regular line. And so what I measured, I'm kind of just guesstimating here, but what I measured is I think I want the skirt of my shirt to be 13 inches from the armpit, or not from the armpit, but from the inside edge of the bodice. So from this point right here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my pieces that I cut out, and I'm just going to kind of place them along this edge here and line them up with the edge of my skirt. I need to raise my fabric up a little bit. And then I'm going to pin my 3 pieces. Or actually, so what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to use a washable marker, because this is just going to be the edge, so the edge is going to be hidden. So the biggest thing is this point here. So I'm just going to kind of draw a rough line that hits all these points, and so it's going to end right here is going to be the end of my piece there, and I'm just going to merge that with the edge of my skirt. And then so I'll kind of split the tops of these slightly just to meet. Alright, so I know it's a little hard to see, but I just drew a line up here at the top of where I'm going to cut, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come right here, and I said I wanted 13 inches, so I'm going to go from my top there, and so right here is my point, and I am going to follow this curved line still, so it's about 10 1/4 from the edge of the skirt, so I'm going to measure that over here as well. And then I'm going to move my pattern piece up. Alright, so what I did is I just moved my pattern piece up so that I could have the trace of the hem, and I did forget in that 13 inches I wanted to add my hem amount, so I did add about 3/4 of an inch there. And I'm just going to cut out here, and this was kind of my mark right here of where the skirt ended widthwise, so I'm going to go there and just kind of cut my own line up to there and cut out the line I drew with my curve. Alright, so this is my skirt front that I have cut out now. that will be gathered. And then for my back, I am going to just cut out this skirt back piece, and it's going to be the same, since I'm not adding the back belt in as you would for the dress. So this I'm just going to do the 13 3/4 of an inch for the back skirt. Alright, so right now I have my front two bodice pieces, my back bodice, and then my skirt pieces that we put together, the front and then the back. I don't have the sleeves cut out yet because I'm not 100% sure I want to put the sleeves on, because it might look really cute as a tank top for a more summery spring print. So we're just going to see, and the sleeves are just really simple to add on. So if I decide I want sleeves at the end, then we will do the sleeves. But what we're going to do now is we are just going to construct the bodice as written. Oh, I forgot, I also have my front belt piece as well, so we need that. But I'm going to construct the bodice as written. So what we're going to do first is we are going to take our back bodice here, and we're going to take one front bodice piece and we're going to match up the shoulders like so. We'll do that on both sides. So you want your side seams, okay, this side that has the straight sides, to be on the same side. So we're doing right sides together and matching those up. And what we're going to do now is we're going to sew these shoulder seams together. And then what I'm going to do over at my machine at the same time is we're going to add clear elastic all the way around the front neckline, the back neckline, and all the way back around. So we're just going to top stitch that clear elastic on the wrong side, just nice and flat. We're not stretching it because we don't want our neckline to cinch in. It's just to stabilize it. So we will go and do both of those steps. Alright, so the next thing we are going to do is apply the clear elastic to the neckline. And this is as written in the instructions. So the first thing you want to do is stretch your elastic, and I believe the instructions say 1/4 of an inch, but I have it's 3/8 of an inch, so it's a little bit bigger, but that's okay. And so when you are applying clear elastic, typically it is just for stabilizing the seams, to give it a little bit of structure, or to keep it from like curling or folding in on itself. And so with this pattern, we are going to apply it all the way around the neckline. So I don't cut it, I just leave it on, this is on a little roll for this one, and just kind of set it next to my machine. And the secret to this is to not stretch it. You do not want to stretch it when you put it on, otherwise it's going to bunch up your fabric. So you're just going to kind of basically just top stitch this on, just so that it is nice and flat when you're sewing it. And so what we're going to do is you're going to take your bodice here, and we're going to start, this is my one of my front pieces. You're going to take your wrong side of your fabric, and at one of the points, I'm just going to, I like to just let it hang over a little bit, sometimes it helps feed through. And I'm going to attach this with a zigzag stitch, and I'm just going to use my regular stitch length of a 2, and I'm just going to go all the way around up the bodice, one side, around the neck, and down, all in one piece of elastic. And when you're doing this, I just like to line up my edge of my elastic to my raw edge of the fabric. Alright, so then once I am done, I'm just going to pull it off and I just snip my elastic, and that is that part. Great, so once you top stitched your elastic on to the inside of your fabric, so you can see here. Here is my right side of the fabric, just that big zigzag stitch, and then the wrong side of the fabric here. And so this clear elastic goes all the way around the whole neckline and stops kind of where that curve on your front does. So now the next thing you are going to do is we are going to fold this over our clear elastic. So the clear elastic also helps to be a really nice guide to keep your seam nice and even. So the other thing you can do, since I don't have a cover stitch, I'm going to just stitch this down with another zigzag stitch on there, but you could serge your clear elastic on if you wanted to, or just go over it again and serge it so that it has a nicer finish on it. I'm not going to do that because I don't think I'll have any issues with it, and you can't see, hopefully not see, the inside of my neckline on my shirt when I'm wearing it. So I'm going to just fold this down, and I'm not going to pin this down just because I have this nice clear elastic in there to give me a nice guide. But so I'm just going to go to my machine, and again I'm going to top stitch this with a nice zigzag stitch all the way around and have this folded over. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do, as this is a little bit out of order from the pattern, but it doesn't really matter. But so far with the bodice, so I have this top stitched on here. You can see that in there on the back side. But so far the instructions and everything, I have not deviated from how the pattern is written. Like I said, this is a little bit out of order, but it doesn't really matter. But I like to do my gathering after I do that, so I don't pull it and have to redo it. But so the next step is where you're going to gather our front bodice pieces. So there was markings on your pattern for it, and I have mine on here, and I'm going to sew a double basting stitch on both of these in between the marks, and then in your instructions it tells you how the size that you need to gather in between those marks for. So I'll need to look up that to see how big this section needs to be, but for right now I'm going to sew that gathering stitches in there. I do 2 rows of basting stitches, and then I'm also going to take my front skirt piece, which is that piece we added the V to, and I am going to sew 2 basting rows, and I am going to do it in 2 sections. So I'm going to do this side up and stop up at the point, and then this side and stop up at the point. And I'm also, before I do that, actually I'm going to add in a stay stitch at the tip, which is in the instructions for the bodice for the belt piece. So I'm going to go about 1 inch down on both sides with the stay stitch, and then I'm going to do my 2 rows of basting up to almost to that point. And then I'm also going to add that stay stitch on my facing piece. Alright, so I got all of my gathering stitches in and my stay stitch. So this is my stay stitch there. I just did a regular stitch length, about 1 inch down, pivoting at the V, and here's my gathering stitch. You can see the 2 stitches there, and I went from here up to the point and I did 2 stitches going the same way, and same from this side, 2 stitches starting and ending at the same point on each side. And also my gathering stitches on my front bodice. So per the instructions, because I'm doing a size 4 bodice, I need to gather these to fit into 2.5 inches. So what you want, I got this one done, you want from your marks that to be 2.5 inches wide when you're done gathering. Both of my bodice pieces, front bodice pieces gathered to the 2.5 inches. Now this is going to vary the width, like I said, per the instructions on the pattern. Different sizes need the different widths of gathering. So I did it as the instructions stated, so I'm going to set that aside. The next thing I'm going to do is gather my front skirt. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this front belt piece is going to be my guide to what I want my gathers to fit in. So I'm just going to gather those up and get that to fit. Alright, so I got this gathered to fit. It matches up the same size as my front piece, my front belt piece, which is my facing. And I did forget that I need to also gather my back skirt to fit the back bodice. So I'm just going to save a little time and I'm going to go base that and gather it real quick. Alright, so I got this gathered to fit. It matches up the same size as my front piece, my front belt piece, which is my facing. And I did forget that I need to also gather my back skirt to fit the back bodice. So I'm just going to save a little time and I'm going to go base that and gather it real quick. Alright, so I got my pieces all gathered now, and what I like to usually I baste it on first, but because of how this is and with this curve, I just ran a basting stitch over my gathers to hold them in place while I do this, so they don't, especially this is a lightweight fabric, so they could shift around really easily. But so now we are just going to pretend that this is the front belt piece as written in the instructions. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the front side of our fabric and front bodice. We're going to take one side of it and we're going to line up this piece where your elastic hit. I'm going to trim these up real quick. We're going to line it up at the point where our stay stitching curved. I'm just going to pin that on there, and then we're going to ease this on to the rest of the skirt. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch this top part about 1 inch on my regular machine with just a straight stitch, because you are going to have to clip the top of it. So I'm going to just stitch that about 1 inch, and then I'm going to go over with my serger up to a little bit overlapping that straight stitch. And once you get this side sewn on, then you're just going to do the exact same steps, matching up the edges here to do that other side. So I'm going to go and just do that all right now. Alright, Alright, so once you get both bodice pieces sewn on, it's going to look like this here. And then we'll have to remove these gathering stitches and stuff before we are done, but for now we are good. And I did overlap these a little bit. It just is kind of what happened, so we'll see what happens there. But so our next step is we're going to fold this back to how we had it, with right sides together. We're going to take this belt piece facing, and we are going to place it on top here, and we are going to pin or clip it all the way along here, and we're just going to sew this on. So what you're doing is you are sandwiching your bodice pieces in between your belt slash skirt pieces. So you're going to just sew this all the way on, and the hardest part is up at this point. You want to make a nice point and kind of pivot it on your machine and just ease that in. So I'll go ahead and do that, and again I'm going to do kind of like what I did with these. I'm going to sew on this tip about 2 inches down with a straight stitch on my machine, and then I'm going to go over to my serger and serge the rest of those seams. Once you got that sewn on, it's going to look a little something like this, and it might pull a little weird because it is inside out. So you can see here where I ended my straight stitch about here, and then my serge went over it a little bit. And so before I do anything else, you want to kind of flip it over, and it is going to still pull a little weird because we have to clip that seam at the tip, but you just want to check and make sure that, and because I overlapped it, it doesn't have that nice super clean point, but that's okay. And it might get a little bit, it'll get a little bit better when I clip it, but it's not going to be perfect, but that's okay. All right, so then what I'm going to do, I'm going to trim my threads here real quick. And then what you're going to do is, this is, again, this is all exactly the same as written in the pattern. So you're going to snip off this point at the very tip of where you cut that off, as close as you can to your stitching without cutting into it, because otherwise it's going to make a hole. And then, so you're going to cut straight across, and then you're going to kind of cut along those curves to just take the bulk out of that point. And then you can flip it over. We'll see if that looks much better or not. So it does lay a little bit nicer. And again, it's just, it wasn't perfect. That's probably the trickiest part of this pattern, is to get that nice crisp point. But I do like that these crossed over a little bit, because it's going to give me just a little bit more coverage on this top. But so then the next thing, once we get that done, I'm going to remove my gathering stitches, just pull them out, and then I'm going to attach the back of my skirt. I'm going to sew that on wrong sides together. I will baste it on first, and then go over that with my serger. Alright, so I have my back skirt sewn on now, and we are about done. So then what we are going to do next is we are going to flip the bodices so they are wrong sides together, and we are going to sew up this side seam. So we are just going to match up, starting at the armpit, and pin down, and we want to match up our skirt seams in the front and back, so that's nice and flat. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stitch this here. I'm going to turn it on this side. I'm going to just clip this facing down into the side seam, and so then hopefully that should tack it down enough to just hold it in place. And because I'm not concerned about it popping through, and I don't think it'll flip up with everything else. So I'm just going to stitch it down in there, and then if I have to, I could maybe put a little tack here in the middle, depending on just if it feels funny. But I don't think I should have any issues. But so then I'm just going to clip these down, and then I'm going to just sew down the sides on both sides. And then once I do that, I'm going to try it on, because I basically have the base of the shirt done, and we're going to see what we think about it as a tank top or as sleeves, and just kind of to see how it's looking at this point. Alright, so here it is so far, and it turned out really cute so far. The biggest thing is it definitely is fitting me a little low, so I am going to bring up the shoulders a little bit just to pull it up, and take away this bunching in the back. Part of that I think is because this fabric is pretty lightweight and unstructured, and this skirt is probably pulling it down a little more than normal because it doesn't have the fitted waist or anything. But I think it turned out super cute so far. So I'm just going to take the top in, and I'm kind of thinking I'm going to add the sleeves. In worst case, I cut them off if I don't like them. Because I think it'll be super cute, like springy top, and I think the sleeves are just going to really add to it. So I'm going to take this in and cut out the sleeves, and then I'll be back. Alright, so I got my sleeves cut out. These I'm not making any adjustments to. I might have to add a little more gathering because I did take those shoulders up a decent amount. So I'm not sure how the sleeves are going to fit in that arm side, because I just kind of did it, and it did help a lot. So I'm really happy with how it fits now. But so the first step is we're going to, there's markings on your pattern pieces. For sure that I'm doing the shoulder gathering sleeve. So I'm going to put in 2 rows of basting stitches on each one between these marks, and it says to gather to 2 inches, so I will gather those up to 2 inches, and then when I put in those basting stitches, I'm also going to just to make it a little quicker, I'm going to fold this over and sew up the seam of both sleeves. So I'm going to go sew that seam and add that gathering stitch, and then I will be back. So I got that side seam of my sleeves sewn up in my 2 rows of gathering stitches, and so the next thing I'm going to do is gather these sleeves so that it's 2 inches between those 2 marks that were on your pattern where you stitched your gathering stitches. Alright, so now that I got my seams, or my shoulders gathered, I'm going to do the elastic for the wrist. And so the pattern says to just take your elastic, wrap it around your wrist, and kind of see what's comfortable. So I want it to be semi-loose. You can fit a finger under it or so. So I found that length there, and then I'm just going to clip it and then cut a second one. And then I am going to just head over to my sewing machine real quick and just stitch both of these elastics together at the ends to make them round. Right, so I got my elastics so that they're sewn in a circle. And so the next thing we're going to do is we are going to attach these to our sleeves. And I do have a video tutorial. It's titled How to Sew Fold Over Waistbands, but this is the same exact method. So if you need a more in-depth tutorial, I'll link that in the description and you can make sure to check that video out. But so what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn my sleeves right side out, and I'm just going to take my elastic and line it up with the raw edge like so, and I'm going to pin. I'm going to find my center point and the center point of my sleeve and pin or clip that together. Then I'll do this on both sleeves, but then I'm going to go over to my serger and I will stretch the elastic so that it fits into the fabric as I'm stretching, pulling both through. I'm going to turn my blade off and just use a long serger stitch and go all the way around and do that on both sleeves. Alright, so I have my elastic sewn on the ends of both sleeves. Sorry, couldn't think of the word. But so now what we're going to do is much like we did on the neckline is we're just going to fold this over and top stitch it down on both sleeves. So we're just going to fold it and make sure that your fold in your fabric is flush to the edge of your elastic before top stitching. So once you have top stitched that elastic down on your wrist, your sleeve is done and we just have to attach it. You can see here I have this nice clean finish. I just top stitched with a zigzag. So our last step of construction is attaching our sleeves to our bodice. So we're going to turn our bodice inside out and our sleeve is right side out. So we are going to take your sleeve and insert it in the armhole, and we're going to find our seam of their sleeve and match it with the seam of our top. And then we're going to find that middle of the gathering there and match it with our shoulder seam up here and clip that, and then you'll just fit that sleeve in the rest of the way and serge all the way around, and you will repeat that for both arms. Right, we made it. So I also just went ahead and hemmed it real quick just to get it finished up, and I did do a little zigzag right here at the top to just keep these together and make it lay a little bit nicer. But other than that, it is done. I think it turned out super cute. I am so glad I added the sleeves. I think the sleeves really complete it. I think as a tank top, I don't know, it just didn't feel finished to me, which obviously it wasn't. But so this is super cute. I hope you give this hack a try. Let me know in the comments if you like this style, what you think of it, if you would wear it. If you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe so that you get notified whenever I leave new videos. And make sure you also follow me on Instagram at Sobex to follow along and give some input on different projects. Hope everyone has a nice day.